You talk to a lot of his supporters who say, why, especially during the health care debate, before the health care, before the vote was brought to the floor, why wasn't he out there negotiating in Freedom Caucus districts as opposed to bringing them to a table in the White House?
Well, I think the question is, what is Trump selling, and does he want to be selling it? And when he was on the trail, he was selling Trump, and so he was very excited about that. The health care bill, he was not, I don't think, ideologically committed to it. He wanted to get a win, but the question becomes, when do you get that win? And I think this White House feels good about some of the regulatory stuff they've been doing. They feel good about Gorsuch, but at some point I do think you have to get something on the board, and it doesn't get any easier after 100 days. I think theoretically he has some of the schmoozing Congress skills that Obama didn't have, combined with the ability to go out on the trail and make these sales, but he's not combining those skills.
I've been out to many of those visits. He went to a Louisville, to a Nashville, to Detroit, around Michigan. He's going to Wisconsin tomorrow. What I'm struck by is that he's still, when he's having these big rallies, he still sounds like he's running for office as opposed to being for office. And I think the White House, the advisors there I sort of speak to, are, and say there are some growing pains, and being president does not translate as much to these big rallies. They are time consuming, and he does like the Oval Office. He has more people inside to visit him in the West Wing than previous presidents, and communications have changed since President Bush. You know, he was not on social media. So this president is more visible in a sense, but I think it is one of the biggest surprises that he's not been out there selling it more, because he only sort of wants to have these big rallies as opposed to small events.
You make the point that he's at the White House a lot, and on the weekends he's been at Trump properties a lot, and one of the questions in this town is now, this is not a transparent administration. I think that President Obama didn't come anywhere close to keeping his promise to be the most transparent president in history, and now you have the follow-on here. This White House has refused to follow the Obama administration's policy of making White House visitor logs public. We don't know who's going in to see the president. We don't know who's golfing with the president. Some of you at home probably think, who cares? But in this environment, is it not appropriate? The White House is a taxpayer-paid building. Should we not know who is going in and out of the White House? And if there's some particular guest that they have to keep secret for some national security reason, have a waiver for that. But I just wanted, the White House Communications Director, Mike Dubke, says this: grave national security risks and privacy concerns of the hundreds of thousands of visitors annually is the reason they're going to go back to the old ways and not disclose the visitors.
And there's a way around that. I mean, to limit who you're releasing. And we should know that information of people coming in and out. But am I shocked that we're not? You know, no. I mean, Trump did not release his tax returns. He's been untransparent in other ways, and won despite that. You know, so I think you're seeing him implement some of those lack of transparency guidelines that he's run by.
Yeah, and to, in some ways, see how much they can get away with, and to see if it works, essentially. And it worked on the campaign trail. You did have, I think, Sean Duffy on our air this morning criticize the White House and talk about the need for transparency. You've heard the White House call you've heard the White House or Trump call the White House the People's House. Well, if it's the People's House, it would be good probably to know who's going into the People's House. This taxpayer-funded building, and you're right. I mean, I think they are using this convenient excuse about privacy, national security, and we'll see if they can get away with it.
Trump himself also used the information from the visitor logs to criticize Obama. You know, based on information gleaned.
That was then. This is now.
Yeah. To me, the visitor log is a no-brainer. It's one of my favorite things the Obama administration, of which I was often critical, did. And no, it didn't change the town. Right? They still had the meetings at the nearby Caribou Coffee for lobbyists because they work around these things because that's what this town does. But you have a sort of standard and you have some idea of who is there and you can look to it. And I think that is an obligation to the American people. You should absolutely do it. The question is whether the constituency to make noise about it is loud enough to make them change their minds.
One of the big policy challenges for the administration this week is deciding whether to stay or pull out of the Paris Global Climate Change Accord. We know inside the White House, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, known to be relatively influential, they are believed to be in the stay in the Paris camp.